Hey everyone, Ben here. Now, I think we can all agree the Formula racing scene in iRacing can be pretty confusing. There's been an influx of new Formula cars over the last few years, each often sitting alongside similar existing content. For example, Season 2 2024 saw the arrival of a new Formula 3-like car and series, the Super Formula Lights, but that sits alongside the existing Dallara F3 car. So, to help you make more informed choices about which series to go for, I've decided to rank the newest and most popular Formula racing content that I've raced on iRacing. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Let's get into it. Okay, first up is the FIA F4 car. Now, this car arrived a little while ago now, but it has been a smash hit on the service. Often literally, but more on that in a moment. The car is incredibly popular, offering an open and fixed setup series in D-Class, each providing 20-minute races. It's designed to be a relatively entry-level Formula option for people graduating from rookies, and compared to other cars on this list, it is certainly easy to hop into, with no complicated electronics or driver aids to worry about. It doesn't have much downforce to offer, so it can be tricky to control the rear of the car at times, especially on cold tyres. But once you get up to speed, you shouldn't have too much trouble keeping the car out of the barriers. Excitingly, it is one of the first cars on iRacing to be compatible with the new Tempest weather system, so wet weather racing is possible, although I imagine that is going to bring with it some unprecedented levels of carnage. That's because one of the downsides with this being a D-Class series and extremely popular is the driving standards can be pretty poor, even in the dry. Surviving on track is often a lottery, and it's that's holding this back from being a top tier choice for me. I'm sure you'll have lots of fun with it, but eventually you'll look for something that's a bit more exciting and a little bit less chaotic. Right, now on to an iRacing classic, the Dallara F3 car. Historically another incredibly popular option. It offers a fixed and open C-Class series, with races lasting just under 30 minutes. It packs more downforce than the F4 car, and although it has more power, this means it is in some ways a bit more straightforward to drive. In stock setups, it does tend to err towards understeer, and yes, you have to be careful on throttle, but the car can cope with higher speed corners relatively well, and it offers some thrilling racing as a result. Unfortunately, the car model itself is now very out of date. Not only is there no halo, but the exhaust on the side of the car and the angular nose mean that this car is not the most pleasing on the eye compared to others on this list. The driving standards can be mixed, but in my experience are generally significantly better than in the F4 series. But the major downside to this car is the arrival of the next entry on our list, which may mean that over time we see the gradual decline of participation in these series. For these reasons, I'm going to place it in the middle of our tier list. There's still some great racing to be had in the Dallara F3, but for my money, there are now better options on iRacing to experience. And one of those options is the brand new Super Formula Light series, featuring the Dallara 324. It's essentially Dallara's latest Formula 3 design, and runs as the feeder series for Japan's Super Formula, itself often a stepping stone for drivers into Formula 1. The chassis looks gorgeous, it's quicker than the old Dallara F3, feels pointier in the corners, and has tons of grip. That means you can really push harder than you might think you can at first. These characteristics make for a quite thrilling driving experience, and one which, if you're used to Formula cars more generally, is relatively straightforward to hop straight into, in my experience. It offers two C-Class series options, a 20-minute fixed race and a 30-minute open setup race. It's also compatible with the Tempest weather system, so expect some changeable conditions to feature in the future. So far the grids have been packed, and as you'd expect with any new bit of content, that has brought its own level of chaos to some races, which can be frustrating. But given how much fun the driving experience is, I'd expect the series to remain popular, while the driving standards should slowly improve. For these reasons, I'm going to put it straight to the top of our tier list. It's accessible, exciting, looks great, and takes advantage of iRacing's latest features. Now we turn to Super Formula Light's big brother, the Super Formula car itself. Introduced to iRacing a couple of seasons ago, this car is where things begin to get a bit more sophisticated and a whole lot more challenging to drive. This car is powerful, packing nearly twice the horsepower of the Lights car, and while it has the downforce to cope with high-speed corners, it often requires a very delicate touch to keep the car pointing in the right direction, especially on cold tyres and at the start of a race. The number of drivers to stack it straight into the barriers on the green lights must be in the hundreds. It also features the OTS, an overtaking system that resembles a push to pass. It can be used for a fixed total amount of time during the race and has a recharging period between uses. It adds a good amount of strategy to sessions, especially longer races. And speaking of longer races, this car features in two B-Class series, a short fixed sprint race of around 15 minutes and a longer session lasting roughly 35 minutes. Participation in the series has dipped somewhat from its launch, but remains pretty strong, and for that reason I'm putting it towards the top of the tier list. It's exhilarating, challenging, at times frustrating, but if you're serious about your formula racing on iRacing, then you must try this car. Finally, we get to the returning iRacing legend, the Dallara IR18. The car may never have left the service, but the IndyCar license did. Now that it's back, the options for the official series open up once again, with the Indy 500 back on the special event schedule, a new series that follows the real-life calendar with full-length races, a shorter fixed setup variant in B-Class, and a dedicated oval series too. The car itself is a joy. To my hands at least, it's a more accessible drive than the Super Formula, despite being even quicker. It feels more consistently planted and easier to push without the constant fear that the rear of the car might overtake you. Like the Super Formula, it comes with a push to pass system to aid with overtakes. This is a 20-second power boost which you can deploy up to 10 times in the race. And it features multiple tyre compounds too, which adds to strategic choices in longer sessions. This is my first season running the car, but my initial experiences of the new fixed series is grids have been well populated and the driving standards have been fairly good, at least by general open wheel standards. And overall, I'm just really excited to get more track time in this car. With the wealth of racing options available, I'm pretty confident that there's something here for everyone. And for that reason, I'm actually going to place this in the top tier of the list alongside the Super Formula Lights. These are ultimately the two cars I'd recommend for anyone looking to prioritise open wheel racing in iRacing in 2024. The Super Formula Lights is quick enough to be exciting but accessible enough to hop into, while the Dallara IR18 is a significantly faster beast, but it won't try to kill you at every corner. But what do you think? Do you agree with this list? Now that we have a dedicated open wheel license, are you planning to run any of these cars in Season 2 2024? Let me know in the comments, and in the meantime, check out my very first ranked race in the Super Formula Light series on screen now.